somewhere.
Whether Mary Jane ever came to Spirit Lake with them, I don't know. Because at the time that she died, she was doing housework. She was a housekeeper in Cherokee, and her brother was also still living there at that time.
Yeah, I think that's what I read. I don't know if I read it in here, if I read in something that I pulled off the internet.
You might have, I'm sure it's there in her
Yeah.
obituary. And then it says, all it says in her obituary is that her body was shipped to Spirit Lake. It does not say anything in her obituary where she was buried. But because her stone was in the Loon Lake Cemetery, that's where it kind of got to the fact, well, that's where she was buried. But like you say,
Nobody knows.
nobody can know that for
Well,
a
and
fact. I imagine if you went back to Spirit Lake, studied some of the very earliest burials in the cemeteries in Spirit Lake, you might be able to find that, or you may not, because records were not very well kept back in that time period.
Yeah, if there's a headstone there. So, but anyway, okay. So how did the legend actually start as far as what you can tell?
Well, there was a James Peters who owned land near Loon Lake. He came there from Spirit Lake. He came to Spirit Lake, as far as I can tell from the Dickinson County history, in probably 1856, something like that. He either bought or started a mill on the little piece of land between Big Spirit Lake and East Lake Okoboji. Whenever he would have any type of a misfortune happen to him, he always blamed it on witches. The witches were out to get him. Where he got that idea from and when that started, as far as he was concerned, I don't know. But I know in the Dickinson County history it says he had this mill. He would then, he would then draw, I think he drew an effigy or something on a tree, and he would shoot at this effigy of witches to get rid of these witches that were supposedly haunting him. He didn't evidently live too long there in Spirit Lake. He had a wife and a daughter, and they were evidently somewhere along the line, they parted company. He moved up by Loon Lake, and there was an ornithologist who was there collecting bird eggs, which of course is illegal now. But he describes this man that he met who believed in witches, and he was doing the same thing there when misfortune fell upon him. I believe then he had silver dollars that he had pounded flat that he used to lay out, and then he would shoot bullets into this effigy, trying to get rid of these witches. Then, so the story goes, and then from there, if it continued on or not, I don't know, but in the 1950s, perhaps this man that owned the Loon Lake store, he would tell stories of witches as a way of trying to sell more beer. That is a story that has kind of been handed down. How much truth there is to that story, there, I don't know that either.
Mm.
Somebody said his nephew told it, and so if he did or didn't, you know.
Yeah.
And of course, it seems to have been more known in Iowa than it actually was in this area
Really?
in earlier times.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So how did the headstones end up here then?
The headstones they would keep being taken from the cemetery. The law officials would oftentimes find them on people's lawns, especially Mary Jane's, and they would attempt to take them back out there, but then they would disappear again and end up in the same way. So finally they just thought, you know, we can't leave them out there, they're not safe out there. So for a number of years they stood in the basement of the law enforcement building in Jackson. And finally, then, I don't know how it came about, but the museum was asked if, you know, this would be a place to put them so that people could, descendants who wanted to see the stones could come and see them. And they're here where nothing is going to happen to them.
Yeah.
And so if someday it becomes safe to put them back out there at the cemetery, I think they would. But right now, like I say, it's not safe. There were perhaps in the early days 70 or so stones out there. Now with these here we can account for 20.
Really?
The rest of them have either disappeared into the marshy lands around there or into the lake, or somebody has them in their family room as a gruesome kind of a grisly looking memento. But whatever has happened to these other stones, you know, don't know. And to try and it would cost money, many permits from the U.S., from the government, all that kind of thing, to take in equipment that would be able to find that type of thing in the marsh or in the lake. So.
Yeah, because there's no metal on them. You couldn't
And,
really.
and some of them were just smashed.
Oh.
You're just trying to get me in trouble.
No. Make you famous.
Famous.
Yeah. So, so did you listen to Megadeth when you were growing up then?
No, not at all.
You didn't?
I wasn't aware of the group at all until somebody told me that he came from Jackson County, so then I
Then you started
went
looking
pursued
into
of
it.
it.
Yeah.
Because I had never heard anything about the Loon Lake
Cemetery at that time?
Cemetery at the time or nothing.
I guess it kind of surprises me that it was more popular in Iowa than it was up here.
I think it just gives credibility to the idea that this man who was trying to sell beer was enhancing the story and creating the story as he kind of went. So more than actually being something that was in existence here for centuries. And
so would he have known that Peters guy, or
who?
no, the guy that owned the Loon Lake store?
Neitzel.
No. William Peters died about 1884, I think so.
Okay.
Somewhere 84, 85, somewhere in there. That was long before
Yeah.
Neitzels were even in this country, I'm sure. So,
Yeah, because
but it's just that, it's a story. It's got a life of its own, as you can tell by searching the internet. That there's so much that they've just taken and run with it.
I think one thing too that happened in Sparrow Lake to some people that I know that went up there, is Tony Tapman has stepped on that grave, and at that time you were supposed to die within 6 months,
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't, it was within the 6 months that they went out and they were turning kitties in the back parking lot of Berkeley and Company, and he rolled his van and died. So, you
Well, I'm
know,
sure you're gonna find coincidences of things that
Yeah.
happen, and they can draw it to that. There was one here that they kept telling me about, two young guys who were out there, and all of a sudden they thought they were being chased, and there's no evidence of a car behind them. But when they got down there at the intersection of County Road 4, I think, in 71, they had an accident. Well, was it related to
yeah,
the story, or was it just coincidence that they
Yeah.
were out drinking beer and they made a judgment call?
unfortunately, there's a lot of people that, because they were drinking beer, that happens.
And, so
So.
I'm sure you're gonna find a lot of stories or coincidences that could make you think that way, but.
Yeah. Okay,
that type of deal. You should put more of a spin that says, here, how this story got
blown out of
blown up,
proportion.
and what it led to was the destruction of a cemetery.
Yeah,
Where you had all these people that were buried there, and all of a sudden now their stones are scattered wherever, or destroyed, or and we don't even know how to put them back to where they were.
Yeah.
So because there was the map, if there was ever one to show who was buried where, has been lost. So
Oh.
I would still like to go out there and do some probing and see if we can't find other stones, because what they have fenced in appears to be only half of the size of the original cemetery. Now, I don't know how far the burials went, but
Yeah.
what was originally surveyed is twice as big as what they've got fence across it, so.